guys, welcome back to another episode of Author Interviews with Jazz and Prose. I'm your host, Sai, and today we're here with the lovely Keia Holt for her book, Dealing with Grief and How to Move Beyond It. Miss Holt, how are you doing today?
I am wonderful. Excited to be here. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Absolutely. We are glad you stopped by. So I usually like to start with the cover. So I'll go ahead and move over to this screen here. And it's a beautiful cover. And it looks like there's a message behind it. So tell us how you came up with the cover of your book.
So I wanted to show the transition of grief. Like we all deal with grief, but we don't have to stay in the state of grief. So I had an idea initially. I wanted an androgynous person like running across the screen, transitioning from blue, gray into what represents as joy. And so my workout partner, I was asking her to design a cover. And so she hadn't shown me anything. And she said, well, I had an idea, but it's not what you were thinking. I said, okay, what was it? She said, a butterfly. And I was like, okay. So we kept working out and I kept thinking about it. And I said, a butterfly represents change. I like it. So she got busy doing other things. So I went with another designer, but I kept the butterfly. And of course, I'm not artistic. So this is what he came up with. And I do personally love it. I love the fact that we might be in this state on one side, but we can transition to the joyful side and moving beyond the grief. So that was the story for the cover.
Yeah, I love that. It's a beautiful cover. I love it. I love the colors. And, you're absolutely correct when you talk about grief is, not staying in that. I think that's an important message that should be pushed out as much as possible because it is something that we all go through,
It is.
Yeah. So, Miss Holt, go ahead. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how, you became a writer.
So I, like most authors, been writing all of my life. I wrote in the newspaper all the way up through college. And I also did short stories and things like that. So when I used to write stories when I was younger, they were all romance stories. And then I kind of stopped writing, I'd say sometime after college. But I'm also a pastor. So I'm still delving into the writing as well as, the art of exhortation. And so going through doing that, this particular book came out of the blue. I was working on a different book. And so this is the first time, this is my first book. This is the first time that I have formally written and published something other than church related, shall I say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, nice. Well, congratulations. Okay. I love that you took that leap of faith to say, I'm going to put this out. Well, let's go into a little bit here with the book specific questions. Okay. So with your latest book, what was the ultimate push to say, I am really going to go ahead and put this out? And then while you're at it, just go ahead and start telling us what readers can expect with your book.
Okay. So like I said, I work a full-time job. I'm a founding pastor. We just celebrated 9 years. And then also with this, right? So I'm pretty busy. So what I try to do whenever I take on a new project is really start thinking about it, start praying about it, preparing myself because it takes a lot of time to write. So I thought that I was working on a different book. So December of 2024, I was listening to a webinar and he teaches you how to start writing. So as I'm listening to him, sitting right here at this same desk, the Lord said, dealing with grief and how to move beyond it. And I'm like, I'm not grieving, whatever, So, and then he gave me the whole chapter outline, the whole book outline. I was like, okay, so I'm busy writing while I'm still listening to this guy. And so what was interesting, and I told one of my friends, she's a kind of a catalyst for 2 of the chapters in the book. Her mother's was just recently diagnosed with dementia. So this was early December. I mean, to the point where they had to do a silver alert to go and find her and everything. So she was like, I don't know what I'm going to do without and I cut her off and I said, don't you dare finish that sentence. And I said, you are basically saying that God is not enough for you to keep living, that your mother is enough for you to keep living, but God's not a reason for you to stick around. I said, you are a wife, you are a mother, you are a teacher, and most importantly, you are my friend. So you don't get to give up. And so there's a chapter called God, You Are Not Enough, because a lot of people think I can't live without my mother. I can't live without my spouse. I can't live without my child. All these things that we think we can't live without. And that's not true, because you forget that God was one who was here all along, before, during, and after we experience those different griefs. And so that's what that one chapter is about. And the other chapter that also came from that particular conversation was dementia is like a long goodbye. And my mother died from cancer, and she
Okay.
suffered with it off and on almost 10 years. So she was my introduction to grief. She died when I was 18 years old. So I had just finished my first semester of college. And so I talk about my story of what I experienced. In the chapter Preparing to Say Goodbye, we don't all get a chance to say goodbye. I didn't get a chance to say goodbye with my father, but I did with my mother. And so it's doing the hard stuff and saying, it's the acceptance of my loved one is going to pass away. And then let me say all the I love yous, I remember when, and all the, coming back with all of those things so that we're not necessarily living in regret. And so my book, I really wanted to talk about, I've lost both of my parents. I experienced a very hard breakup. And then I also lost my grandmothers. And so it's my story of how the grief I experienced and how, by the grace of God, I was able to deal with it and move beyond it.
Okay. Okay, Miss Holt. Ooh, now one thing about me, I'm a crier, but I'm gonna pull it together for this.
You know what? I'm proud of myself, because usually when I talk about God, You Are Not Enough, in that conversation with my friend,
Yeah,
I was like, don't you cry this time. Don't you cry.
yeah, but
Because,
we're human. Yeah,
right.
we're human. And I tell people, crying is cathartic. You got to get it out. But yeah, this topic is very it's personal, but it's also very to be human. I mean, we're all going to, whether we like it or not, deal with grief in some form or fashion. But I really love that acknowledgement that God is the end all be all, and that we have to do the hard thing. Like, I love Ian Levin, and she always says, do the work.
Right.
It's going to be hard sometimes, but acknowledging, I think preparing and just understanding it's a part of growing up. And I'm truly sorry for your loss. I know that was a very early on loss for you, navigating adulthood, I'm sure. So this book, I feel like it will help people will see that we're all connected
We are.
on this alone,
Yes.
and I'm sure, being that you're a pastor, you bring such an anointing to this, because it seems like, when you sat down, you were listening to that webinar,
Oh
that this
my.
was the Holy Spirit that wrote this.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
I was like, but and the other thing is, I didn't feel like I was dealing with grief. I really, it is now, since I finished the book, and now July is 5 years since I lost my father. And so I didn't feel like I was dealing with grief. But when I started writing the book, oh my gosh, it was going through to write about what I was feeling at that time, was re-experiencing a lot of those things. There were so many things I have forgotten about. There were some revelations in there that I didn't even realize. So I didn't know how much I needed this, because I thought I dealt with all of it. I'm good, and that's how we usually feel. And then I found out, no. And so as I was writing, and especially with my friend, with her mother going through dementia, and as we were talking about the book, going through it, and it was, for me, in the beginning, it was very emotional. It was a lot of tears, and I'd have to get up from this desk and go and walk. And but I just kept saying, God, help me to articulate this so that I can help someone else. Because every time I told somebody about the book, they were like, oh my gosh, hurry up and finish. Oh, I really need this book. And so I was like, stop pressuring me. But, but it was a confirmation that the book was needed. It was a confirmation that I really did hear from the Lord in writing it. And so it is, I think it's a beautiful story. It's not just my story. The two longest chapters are dealing with grief and how to move beyond it. But I've got other things. I am a pastor. I am going to talk about the Lord.
Yeah,
So,
of course.
and there's no denying that part of it.
Yeah, yeah. And it's, I thank you, because, like, all those people who said, hurry up, I need this, people do need this. being human, the human experience, and dealing with navigating emotions. Everyone does not have the community, the parents, the family to have these conversations with them. And what ends up happening is that they, suppress those emotions, and people grieve differently.
Right.
So I think, like you said, when you were writing and you didn't even know, sometimes it can be years later and things just dawn on you and like, oh my God, I never thought about that.
Right.
um so I think that, you writing this book, yes, can definitely help a lot of people. Now, tell us a little bit about your writing and publishing journey. So, your process. I like to ask the question, are you more of a pen and paper person, or do you use the computer? We have a lot of people using their cell phones nowadays. So, what's your method?
I'm not a millennial. Can't do cell phone. I'm a typer, and
Okay.
so and I actually can type faster than I write. So I do, but now when I'm out and about, I do put notes in my phone, and then when I come back home, I will, put those things in there. But
Mhm.
because I have a lot of things going on, so prior to writing the book, my schedule was already set. So I get up at 5 or 5:30 in the morning, and that's when I'm working on my sermons, Bible study, whatever it is for that. Then I go and work my 9 to 5. And then after that was outside of gym and other activities was my writing time. And so what I did was I created a schedule to ensure I got X amount of hours each week for writing. So I'm very meticulous. I love Excel spreadsheets. And I've got a bulletin board over here, but I needed to track to ensure that, because I really, in the webinar I was listening to, he was saying you can write the book in 90 days. Because it wasn't going to be that long of a book. So I'll show you
Right.
here. It's
Love
not that
it.
long, right? And so I was like, 90 days. Okay. So I spent the first bit of it learning, because I think that's the part we miss out on. We think just go write a book. Well, if you want to write an effective book, a well-written book, then you want to try to learn from others. So I did listen to a lot of webinars, YouTube, all these different things of other people who were kind of helping you with the process. But for
Mhm.
me, I needed to work on the schedule of writing. And then, so I did that, and I took his goal of writing in 90 days. So I actually started writing in January, and I did it I didn't do it in 90, I did it in 120, and I finished in April. And so I went looking for an editor, because I didn't want, even though I'm self-published, I wanted to present good work. I'm a mass communications major. So I wanted to make sure that if one of my old college people
Yeah.
looked at it, I didn't want them to be ashamed. So anyway, so the editing process, oh my gosh, that was that was draining. I love my editor. I prayed about the kind of editor I wanted. I wanted, because I do have scriptures and things. I wanted a
Mhm.
Christian editor. I went and looked at the books that she published, as well as the other books that she edited.
Mhm.
So I went through a list of all of them. I went through and I was just like, God, I really need someone who can help me. So although I didn't like the editing process, it was necessary. And she pointed out great things. One of the best things that she asked me was, are you writing this book for your friends and family, or for a wider audience? And that was the best thing that she could have said, because it helped me to expand what I was saying, and getting rid of some of the specifics and the inside jokes that only my friends and family would get, and
Mhm.
really write a book that would attract a large audience who doesn't know me, never heard of me, that they would still be helped with this book. So so she was very necessary in a lot of things there. But I knew that I wanted to self-publish, and my friends and I were talking about that. People used to look down on self-published books, because it was usually that, oh, you can't get a contract. Now, it's not anything negative, to be self-published. So
Oh yeah, no, it's become the thing. Even not even just in books, but a lot of musicians are going independent. People are just, because we're in the age of information, people are like, oh, I can do this myself.
right.
Um, and I think, yeah, it all depends on your platform, how many, your community that you're building online. And that's, I mean, really for the most part, but a lot of people, like you said, they go the publishing route because they just want to write the manuscript. They don't want to do a lick of editing. Don't ask me to remove a comma slice. Like, I don't want to do anything. I just want to write the book and y'all do the rest. Okay. And a
Right.
lot of people do that. So I think it really just varies on what your goal is and what your
Mhm.
intentions are with writing. It's a very it's a personal choice. And I love self-publishing because I'm just a very creative person and I love everything. One of the reasons why I always start with the cover, because that's literally one of my favorite parts of putting
Yeah.
out a book, is like the cover. I will spend like, oh my God, hours just designing a cover. So
Oh,
yeah. Um well, that's good that you had an editor. Like you said, it is a very brutal process. A lot of people do not like doing that, but it is very necessary.
it
Even
is.
if you are, you have a PhD in English, you still need another set of eyes to go back
Absolutely.
and look and scan through, just to make sure. And I love that little tidbit your editor talks about, which is defining your audience.
Mhm.
That is so important because a lot of people, when they do write, like you say, with the little inside jokes and things, you have to think longevity. You have to think like, who am I helping with this? And even, if it's an inside joke that obviously only your family would understand, as long as you build up that story so they can follow and understand,
Right.
the joke is. Some people put it throughout the whole book. But I think that's very important, the editing process. Like if you're going to spend money on a portion of putting your book out, please make sure it is the editing, because that's, as a person who I'm a reading teacher,
Okay.
writing teacher, when I have typos, even in a post, I have to delete the whole thing and just do it because I'm like, no, I can't go out like that. Y'all not gonna catch me flipping. We're not doing that. So yeah. And the thing is that yes, read it and this is what I tell my students with writing, is that when you have those errors, it interrupts the flow of the reader when they're reading. So it kind of takes away. So
Mhm.
yeah, it is important. So when it comes to advice for aspiring authors, what is one thing, maybe it could be like something you wish you knew at the beginning of the process or just anything. What advice would you give to someone who wants to write a book?
The first thing I would say is do it. The one thing I kept hearing was when people were saying you feel like an imposter. They called it imposter syndrome. I'm not an author. No one's going to want to read my book. My story doesn't matter. And it does matter. What made me really do this is because I was listening to other nonfiction authors who had written a memoir. Some added other things to help people, and some just told their story. And I kept going, yes, this story needs to be told. But I was like, okay, but God, does my story need to be told? And
Mhm.
so I talked about this in the book. So I go to Zumba. My instructor is also a therapist. So after class, I was telling her that I was writing a book. And I said, but I'm going to delete one of the chapters. And she said, which one? It's the breakup chapter. And she said, why? And I said, because people are so judgmental, right? I want to tell my story, but I don't want to tell that story because it's going to be like, really, and I just felt the judgment of people because of the things that they had said to me when it was going on. And she said, let me tell you why you should include it. And I said, why? And she said, because when I had a major breakup, she explained what she did, which was unhealthy. And she said, you didn't do that. You need to write your story to help other people so they don't do what I did, and to help other people to understand. She just kept saying that a breakup is grief, and it is. And I did a lot of research that I included, which helps people move beyond their grief. But it was letting go of the stigma of what others will say. And I think that's one reason we don't like to tell our story, is because we don't want the judgment of others. Well, as a pastor, I share a lot of my story. And that was one reason I didn't want to preach, because I couldn't do it without giving you Keia. And I didn't always want to give you Keia. But that's the part that helps people understand we're all human. Like you said, we're all dealing with grief. We deal with breakups. We deal with these different parts of life. So my suggestion is to write the story. Tell your story, write the book, tell your story. You do matter. Your story does matter. Your story will help someone else. So it is getting over that fear. And, like most people say, the blank page. So what I do when the page is staring at me and I've got this blank page, I'll just kind of start writing ideas, different things I would like to see. So when the page isn't blank, it gives you more courage to just start writing things. And I definitely recommend keeping your cell phone with you. And I keep post-it notes all over my house for different things. So when you get that idea, write it down and go back and incorporate it. But your story matters, and your story will help someone. So that's my encouragement, is to write your story. And I did a lot of research. I needed other people who were successful in writing, whether they were a publisher, an editor, a writer. I listened to others. I learned a lot of things as far as trying to get help, when we talk about advanced readers. So I pulled all of that from all my people for free. And that was
Yeah.
another thing. This is not cheap. If you're gonna do it, it's not. I paid the most expensive thing I did was an editor. I paid somebody to build my website. That is not
Yeah.
my gift. Okay. I
Yeah.
paid somebody to do my cover. I'm not artistic. So there were things that I just acknowledged. I waved the white flag. This is not your gift. Pay someone to do it. And my whole thing, even with the editor, was I said, you put this book out and you put it out once. So save up until you can do well, till you can do it right. And that's what I did. Some people just say, just put it out there. I'm with you. I can't handle all the typos and all of this. So I'd rather wait and do it correctly. But I'm very glad I did it. As
Yeah.
afraid as I was, I'm very glad I did it.
It's an amazing accomplishment. So you should definitely be patting yourself on the back, because a lot of people do have the idea to write a book, but they don't always go through with it. And so that's the thing. If you can write a book, then you can pretty much, I would say, do just about anything you put your mind to, because it's having that idea. And the one thing I do like about writing books, and a lot of people don't, I don't know, think about it, is that you can write that one book and start a whole business just from that, Yeah. So you were saying you had more advice for people who want to write.
I did. So here's an editing suggestion. Is one of the things I didn't think about in the beginning, especially for those who are saying I don't really have that much money to pay for editing. On Word, if you go in there under review, it says read aloud. When I had it read my story to me, it helped me catch if I was missing the word the, if I wrote a instead of and things like that. That was very helpful to me, especially if your editor charges by the amount of corrections made. That will save you some money, because our ear will catch it sometimes before our eyes do, because we're already familiar with our text.
That's a really good tip. I might have to use that myself.
It was very helpful.
Yeah. Okay. I feel like we do have a little, 1 second here. We're going to our trivia time. Let me see. There we go. Yeah, we have a little trivia, but it is a what do we call it? Author edition, would you rather? So some basic little fun questions
Okay.
that we're gonna see. Yeah. Okay, so we're gonna have you, Miss Keia, pick a number from 1 to 4.
4.
4. That is no one ever picks 1, 2, or 3. Oh, hold on. Hold it back. Okay, now this is a good question though. So, would you rather have coffee with Maya Angelou or Oprah?
I'm going to say Maya Angelou. I love both of their background stories.
Okay.
And so I look at people's background story, because sometimes even with both of them, that's what makes you strong. But I would say Maya Angelou, because when I was in high school, I did a couple of her poems. Still I Rise is my favorite of her. But knowing her story, and she wasn't ashamed to tell her story. She used to be a prostitute. Okay. So to know your story, to not be ashamed to tell your story, and then her life is proof of Still I Rise, in spite of my background, in spite of things I've been through. So they both have that story, right?
Yeah.
Not the prostitute part, but they both had a rough upbringing. But and then Maya Angelou, because of the way she uses her words.
She's definitely she's amazing.
So
Yeah, it's a tough choice, but
it
yeah,
is.
I love my
You wouldn't
Angela.
lose, I don't think, with either one.
Yeah,
But
you would definitely get some gems from both of them
absolutely.
for sure. So we're at our closing slide, Miss Keia. So what is next for you? You've got your first book out. Okay. So do you see any more books that you're going to be putting out in the future?
I'm already working on it. So one, I have a companion journal that I'm working on with dealing with grief. Because one of the ways to really deal with your grief is to identify how you're feeling and then dealing with those emotions, right? And then progressing beyond it. So I hope to have that one out. Well, no, let me speak definitively. That one will be out within 30 days. Okay. I am
Okay.
working on writing a second book. So this one is kind of evolving. And this is one also like I had to deal with my grief as I was writing. So
Mhm.
this one has to do with the fruit of the spirit from Galatians 5. And I was like, Lord, do I need to work on love, joy, peace, patience? You know, patience. Let's not talk about that. So it is, once again, me doing the work. But really, why do you want to incorporate these things into your life? And so I think it's going to evolve a little bit like dealing with grief did. But I want to do that. And I also want to do a companion journal with that one. So I am already working on more things to come, and it's just really exciting how God just kind of lit that match of writing within me, just another expression. So yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, and we are excited as well. We're glad that you have taken the first step, putting out that first book. And it's another way to minister to people because, people receive things differently.
Mhm.
They may come, to a church service, but then, reading a book that goes into more detail where they can sit and really just sit with, some people may just sit with one paragraph for
Yes,
hours,
yes.
and work with that. So that's amazing. Well, we congratulate you. So tell us, the readers, where we can find the book.
Yes. So I have a website,
Okay.
KeiaHolt.com. If you purchase, it's the same price. Of course, you can get it on Amazon. But if you purchase on my website, I will sign your book and includes a couple special things in there. You can purchase from Amazon. And so both places will have all of the products right now. So I know that this will age because I know your show is going to continue to stay on and people will be watching this. But if you have Kindle Unlimited, keep checking for the times that the book is free. So today is July 17th. It is free. So go get it for free if you have Kindle Unlimited.
Oh, wow.
But if you order on my website, I am signing every single book and I'm putting a couple extra things in there. So you can order from either place. Same price, $19.99.
Absolutely, guys. Definitely go to her website because that one's going to be anointed. It's going to be
Amen.
anointed. For sure.
If I
Okay.
can do a small plug, the name of our church is Covenant Believers Community Church. We're located in the Columbus, Ohio area. If you're looking for a church, we're looking for you.
Guys, Columbus, Ohio. This is a sign
Man,
because I told her it's the second one today from Columbus, Ohio. So yeah, stop by, visit with Pastor Holt.
watch it
Okay.
blind.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Well, we definitely enjoyed having you here today. This is a great reminder and it's a great resource, guys, of navigating grief. Unfortunately, it is something that we're all going to have to deal with at some point in life. But with books like this, it can make that step just a little bit easier. Okay. Well, Ms. Holt, we thank you so much for stopping by. You're definitely welcome back anytime.
So much, Miss Sharp. Continued blessings to you.
Thank you so much, guys. Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of Author Interviews with Jasmine Prose, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye.